With great pleasure, Matthew Guy, next Premier of Victoria.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the state team is hungry and united. We want government back. We're not going to ask for it. We're not going to be gentlemen about it. We're going to fight every way to get government back because we can do it better than Labor. And no more will this party come to government and simply be a pale imitation of those we replace. We're going to come to government with Liberal values, with ideas of this party, taking values of this party into government, all of it. And let me be very, very clear. The public service doesn't run the government, we'll run the public service. We will be a Liberal government that stands up for values that this community believes in, that Victorians believe in. January 26 is Australia Day. Full stop. Teaching respect for the institutions that have founded our country in our schools. And ensuring, as I said before, that our values, Liberal values, are adhered to by all in government. Not those who interpret it in statutory authorities or in government departments, but leadership from the government, from the cabinet, from the Premier. Leadership that reflects this party, this state council and our party's values. That's what's important. So can I acknowledge again, most sincerely, my parliamentary colleagues who are here today. David Hodgett, my deputy, who has done an outstanding job, a great job leading internally in our party. Can I acknowledge Mary Wooldridge, our upper house leader. The upper house is quite a fluid place when it comes to votes and managing the upper house. She has done, with Gordon Rich Phillips, a fabulous job at doing that. All of my state colleagues, they have worked so hard, they have been so disciplined, like the state team has never done before. But we know one thing about this party. You don't tolerate anything except a win, and nor should you. And we know that and we understand that, and that's what we're driven by. That's what our candidates are driven by. And that's what we know we need to achieve in 1 year's time. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday there was a by-election in the seat of Northcote. There was a by-election in the seat of Northcote. Let me tell you one thing. Let's not gloat, let's speak fact. This party hadn't won a state by-election since 1988. In 2015, we won two of them, for the first time since 1988, in Richard Reardon in Polwarth and Roma Britnell in South West Coast. Two fabulous members now of our parliamentary team. We did the work, we listened to our community, we didn't go in there and preach to them, we listened, we reflected their values, and we won those by-elections. Last night, Daniel Andrews saw the Labor government lose its first by-election since 1948. 1948. And you know what his response is? We've got to go back to being a middle-of-the-road government. Middle of the road? What road is that? I looked at that and thought, is that the hard left highway? I thought to myself, safe schools and, heroin injecting rooms and banning plastic bags, a middle-of-the-road government. Well, if that guy thinks he's been a middle-of-the-road government, if he genuinely thinks they've been middle of the road for the last 3 years, bring on an election. Bring it on. I made a list. $140 million they've thrown at Northcote. 5 schools, which a few months ago they were saying, no need for upgrade. No need. 5 schools got upgraded. They did ban plastic bags. They prematurely brought on a euthanasia debate. They've now got pets roaming rental properties. All of this, he can't even buy love in Northcote. And I'll be very clear. We know what the Greens know. This man is not a popular leader. He is not. When he said, and he said this week, whatever your point of view, he said about the postal plebiscite, if we don't win, then you need to go out and get even. Get even. That's the language of the Premier. Go and get even. You don't agree with him? Get even. That's not the language of a leader, that's the language of a thug.
Yes.
That is a thuggish union, a Spanish Union bully boy leader. It's a Trotskyite in trendy glasses. No one talks like that as a leader. So when I say we don't want to be a pale imitation of any past government, I certainly mean his government. And why would we? The rorting, the absolute disgrace of this Labor Party to rort public money like it's their own bank. And our state director and state president are 100% right. We are going to see whether Don Nardella and Telmo Languila have any eligibility to even sit in this parliament. These people who rorted their electoral allowance, I mean, he said, for goodness sake, he said he lived 70 kilometres from his own seat and claimed an electoral allowance, Don Nardella, and still hasn't moved. He still hasn't moved. Telmo Languila, I forgot, he says, I forgot that I was on the electoral roll, not in my seat. Beggars belief. The factual infighting of this government. I say it as in jest, but it's true. These people hate themselves more than they hate us. These people can't run a chook raffle, they're running the government. They've got the cabinet leaking against each other, the Premier leaking against them, the Premier bagging them. Most of them openly in question time, disdainful of each other. We've got the CFA debacle, which John Shearing knows all about as a former board member of the CFA. No action on law and order. This government who wants to look after the perpetrator, not the victim. And it's not just a glib line, it's fact. Every excuse they make is about what we've got to do for the perpetrator. I care not for perpetrators, I care for people who are obeying the law. And that's what our party stands for. 20 new taxes. 20 new taxes. This guy stood on the steps of Parliament the night before the 2014 election and said there will be no new taxes under a government I lead. Heard that from Labor before, haven't we? Oh. No new taxes. Sky rail without consultation. Safe schools. And of course allowing Hazelwood Power Station to shut. For the sake of inner city preferences and inner city votes, he allowed Hazelwood to shut. Well, how are those inner city votes going for you now? Was it worth it? Was it worth it, forsaking 700 jobs in Morwell, forsaking baseload power supply, to then go out there for inner city votes, which you don't even get anyway because they know the true character of you, and you leave people here in Morwell, one of the most socially disadvantaged area of Victoria, and you leave them 700 fewer jobs. And of course, I said before, the style of this man who's the Premier, this winner-take-all attitude that says, if you're not 100% with me, you are an enemy, and I will go out and grind you into the ground. Just ask Jane Garrett, his former Cabinet Minister, about that attitude, because that's how he governs. And that's why Victorians are waking up to this man. They realise, even those in Northcote, that this style of government is not leadership. This is thuggery. This is a kind of leadership that is akin to the ACTU Trades Hall elections. It's not how you run a state. It's not how you genuinely try your best as a government to include everyone in your state, to govern for all of us. Wherever you live, whatever your gender, whatever your background, male, female, immigrant, Australian, whatever. It's about all of us in this state. As I've said before, we don't intend to be a government that's a pale imitation of anyone. We want to be first and foremost a Victoria that is a respectful state. That's why I've announced that in the first 100 days we will commence a royal commission into the CFA debacle. And that royal commission will get to the bottom of what needs to be done to contemporise and modernise our fire services, to ensure that Victorians can have confidence in them and know that they are not being politicised by a hard left government and an even harder left union that wants to run roughshod over our 60,000 men and women volunteers who put their lives on the line for all of us, particularly here in country Victoria. We are going to be a government that's respectful to all ages, particularly our children. That's why we're going to scrap the Safe Schools program. For For goodness sakes, let kids be kids. A lot of people talk to me about safe schools. People who might not have children, people who have children in independent schools, a lot of them. Let me tell you my greatest incentive to replace the Safe Schools program with a real anti-bullying program. I've got 2, soon to be 3 sons in the state education system. That's my incentive to ensure that they get a proper education around bullying, not a radical gender studies program. It's my own children as the incentive to make sure it is scrapped. And that's why I can guarantee you, again to this room, there are initiatives out there that are worthy. Tim Smith and Georgie Crozier last night at the Alana and Madeline Foundation charity ball. A program that can deliver an anti-bullying message to our children that is about combating bullying, not about teaching kids to question their gender at age 4. This is madness and it constitutes a form of abuse. We are going to make our state safe again. And I say this and I repeat it again today because it's right. Mandatory sentencing for those 11 key offences. Bail reform, making sure that those who are brought in on offences that are against the person, the presumption is remand, not bail. Reversing this government's crazy changes to youth justice that says those underage can't be held, even though they're found in people's homes at 2 in the morning with a baseball bat. We are going to ensure that this state is safe again. These initiatives are real and they will have no level of ambiguity for our judiciary to try and get around them. We are elected as a government to get on and reflect the will of the people. And Victorians want a safer state and that's what we will deliver. We want to be a caring state, a healthy state. Caring when it comes to things like palliative care. $140 million. The biggest palliative care announcement in our state, in fact our nation's history. Looking after places like here in country and regional Victoria. Mary Wooldridge announced that initiative as one that sets us apart from our opponents, from anyone else, about ensuring that Victorians can have confidence and care in that system when their families need it the most. And places here like in West Gippsland, where we will begin the planning process to rebuild the West Gippsland Hospital here in Warragul, where we will do the same in Watermore, in Roma Britnell's electorate, to ensure that country and regional Victoria, areas so often forgotten by our opponents, will get the best of care and the best of services under a Liberal government. We'll be an affordable state, and when I say affordability, let me turn to the obvious 2 issues. Number 1, electricity. When it comes to electricity, we're not going to forsake, for the sake of ideology, our baseload power stations. Those job-generating stations just 30 kilometres from here at Yallourn W, another 20 kilometres on to Loy Yang. We're not going to stand by and watch our power stations close. Yes, there is a necessity over time to look at other methods of power generation. However, as part of our energy mix, it is absolute and utter insanity to allow your baseload power generation to close down with nothing to replace it. Absolute insanity. And indeed, this government says they do have a replacement. They've got batteries. I mean, the Duracell Premier. It's all fine, he's got batteries that last for 4 hours. There's 100 megawatts of them. And you took out 1,600 megawatts out of Hazelwood. And don't forget the 700 jobs that went along with it. And now this government is still not standing up for baseload coal power generation, like they should. Looking at working with those companies to reinvest in that technology, to get lower emissions out of the coal power stations, which is happening in Europe, which should be happening here in Australia. We've got a resource, we can't sit by and waste it, we can't transform to baseload with any other mechanism at the moment, so therefore keep those jobs and save those power stations. That's what we will be doing. When it comes to the renewable energy target, this is but pure political vanity here in Victoria. It was just something else that Daniel Andrews put out there, quite frankly, for the Northcote by-election. 40% by 2025. As David Southwick will tell you, this target can't be met without closing your Lawn W. Well, we won't close your Lawn W, and that's why we'll scrap that target and move to realistic targets, nothing like that, when we get elected in 12 months' time. And ladies and gentlemen, circumstances change and governments must respond to them. That's why we will scrap Labor's legislative ban on natural gas onshore that is going to cost this state many, many, many millions, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment. If it remains, we're going to bring natural gas supplies to this state. And importantly, for the first time, we will give our farmers and our landholders a portion of those royalties to ensure that they benefit from what's underneath them as well, to not leave our rural communities in the lurch, to not leave farmers out there at the whim of a large corporation. We will make sure our rural and farming communities benefit from natural gas being opened up in the southwest and further out here in East Gippsland. We won't leave them in the lurch. It's a sensible plan, and it will bring natural gas supplies, both for domestic and business consumption here in Victoria, something our opponents will not do. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to be a state that is not just affordable for those who are here now, but affordable for those into the future. That's why we believe in solving housing affordability primarily through supply, something our opponents do not. Urban renewal in our downtown. Activities areas in our established urban areas that are defined, that leave our suburbs intact, and our activities areas, the place for population growth in the established urban area, and our growth areas, to make sure those structure plans are completed by a reasonable time frame, 30 June 2020. And then we want to ensure we start to do what Victoria must do in the next 30 years, and that is become a state of cities, not a city state, governing and leading with a vision for all of Victoria. That is what is going to put our party well ahead and well different from our political opponents. Those guys believe in more of the same. We're better than you, we can spend more than you, we can do this, we're progressive, you're not. It's all the same old arguments for the last 30 years. Australians are sick of it. They want something different. They want to know, what is it you're going to leave for my children and my grandchildren? Well, let me be clear. We want to make Victoria a safe state, an affordable state. We want to use our energy resources to power our future, and our future is one of a state of cities, where regional Victoria is starting to grow, where places like the Latrobe Valley have population growth, not population decline. Looking at taxation incentives, planning incentives, transport incentives, looking at whether it's rail or road or air or port around the Port of Hastings that provide incentives for job growth outside of Melbourne. We can't be a state that grows for the next 30 years the way we have the last 30 years. Only the Liberal Party has this vision for all of Victoria. Only the Liberal Party is saying we need to have a narrative about every part of our state to ensure that the federal government, a state government, local government and local industry are talking the same narrative about every area when we're going overseas and seeking investment. To ensure we've got job growth in regional areas that has a taxation system that complements it, not works against it, that has a planning system that can enable growth rather than hinder growth. It's about saying we want all of Victoria to grow. Wherever your family and your children reside, we want those same opportunities to be there. And we know that involves investment, and it will. But that's what we believe in terms of growing a long-term vision for our state, not a short-term media opportunity simply to show up and hope you can get by for the next year or two. So when people say, what differentiates you from the people who are in power today? Be under no misapprehension about where we stand, about being a safer Victoria, a Victoria that cares for everyone within it, a Victoria that wants to keep the lights on, and a Victoria that's going to be a decentralised Victoria, a modern state, a state for all of us, no matter where you live. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to help me. We have 1 year to go. 1 year. This government is beatable. and I mean this absolutely sincerely, this government can be beaten. They are having trouble holding on to their own heartland. This is no accident. We know Daniel Andrews is a thug. We laugh about it, we cry about it, we know it's true. So does the ordinary Victorian. People know this guy, people can see him, they can see the light of his eyes. They know this man is a bully. They know this man is governing just for a small group, his own mates. And they know that he will run roughshod or drive over you if you don't agree with him. And that's not the kind of leadership they want for the 21st century. We offer something different. We offer a Victoria, as I've said, that will be there for all of us. A Victoria that will ensure that we grow steadily and sensibly and securely with proper energy policy, law and order policies, affordability on housing, taxation policies, a Victoria that we can be proud of. One that does not treat our children as social experiments. One that lets kids be kids. A Victoria that all of us know that we want to attract people to, not cringe about when we talk about scrapping contracts worth $1 billion. But I need your help to get that message out there. So when Michael or Nick or the admin committee or your electorate council talk about coming in and making those calls, campaigning when we need it, in the seats where we need it, please help us. Because we can see this guy is on the ropes. Last night he suffered his first election defeat ever. He's never lost an election. A by-election, a leadership election, a general election. Last night, even though it was the Greens, is a message for Daniel Andrews that says, this guy's on the outski. We can be a government for all the Victorians. And let me tell you, with your help, with your determination, with your drive, in 12 months' time, that's what we're going to be. Thank you very much.